Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze how Roberto Firmino and Jurgen Klopp's midfield shuttlers played a key role in Liverpool's 5-0 win at Old Trafford. So in today's video, first we're going to focus on Man United and Liverpool's press, then we'll shift to Liverpool's attacking shape, and lastly we'll focus on how Firmino's midfield overloads caused United several issues. So when we break down the game and we do look at the board, we have Man United in a 4-2-3-1 and Liverpool starting the game in a 4-3-3. So first we'll focus on how both sides look to press, as that was a contrasting feat in this game, and it did play a significant role in the overall result. What we ended up seeing from Liverpool is that they did have Firmino stepping towards Lindelof, Salah pressing Maguire and looking to block off the passing lane into Shaw, and Jota was closing down Wan-Bissaka. When Fred and McTominay looked to drop into their own third to receive the ball, Keita and Milner were stepping forward to close them down, and Henderson was tracking the movement of Bruno. That does leave Luke Shaw free if De Gea or Maguire can bypass Salah, but what we ended up seeing was that when the ball was shifted out to Luke Shaw, Alexander-Arnold was stepping forward to close him down, and that would end up seeing Konate or Keita shifting across to deal with Rashford. Here's another example of Liverpool's pressing, with Jota stepping towards Wan-Bissaka, and Wan-Bissaka may be looking to play the ball into McTominay, but Firmino's dropping off to close down McTominay as Milner steps forward, and that results in the ball being played back into the path of Lindelof. When Lindelof receives the ball, Firmino does a very good job of stepping towards him and blocking off the passing lane into Fred, as Jota's tight near Wan-Bissaka, Milner stepping towards McTominay, and Salah's near Maguire but prepared to step to the path of De Gea. When De Gea receives the pass back from Lindelof, Salah doesn't step into his path as he sticks near Maguire, and you could see Naby Keita prepare to step towards Fred, and that should leave an outlet for De Gea to punt the ball into the path of Luke Shaw to push forward as a spare man. But Trent Alexander-Arnold does a very good job of stepping into United's third, and he makes an aerial challenge that halts Man United's build-up play. In terms of Liverpool's pressing on the opposite flank, there were times where you did see Wan-Bissaka on the ball with Jota, and McTominay was looking to drop off to receive the ball, and if Milner wasn't able to step forward, Firmino was shifting laterally to close down McTominay, and even when Milner was stepping forward, you still would see Firmino in that area. Here you could see Robertson with tight pressure on Greenwood, and with Greenwood looking to play the ball into McTominay, he can't do that because Milner and Firmino from behind are ready to step into McTominay. In terms of Naby Keita and Milner, if they couldn't step forward, there were times where you would see Firmino stepping towards Lindelof and looking to block off the passing lane into McTominay to ensure that he couldn't get the ball freely. While Liverpool weren't able to sustain this pressure for the entire game, it did cause United several problems in terms of their build-up play, and it led to Liverpool's dominance in that opening period. Here we witnessed Liverpool's press in full effect, with Firmino stepping to Lindelof but blocking off the passing lane to McTominay, Salah near Maguire, and Keita prepared to step towards Fred. That forces Lindelof to play the ball into the path of Fred, and that's where you see Naby Keita stepping in to apply the pressure, and he won the ball. What happens next is that Keita ends up poking the ball into the path of Firmino, and from that position he should be looking to square it into the path of Salah, but the ball ends up bouncing off his foot and it bypasses Keita, and that ultimately halts the Liverpool attack. Here we could witness another example of Liverpool's pressing, with McTominay receiving the ball from Maguire in the midfield zone, and it's Jota and Milner stepping to him to apply pressure. The issue that McTominay makes here is that he tries to play the ball into Fred, who's close tightly by Naby Keita, and that results in Naby Keita stepping in from behind to win possession, and that results in a 4v2 Liverpool break where Naby Keita opts to play the ball across Lindelof into the path of Firmino, and luckily for United, the pass is slightly overhit, and from this position, Firmino is only able to fire a low effort on goal that De Gea pushes away. United, on the other hand, had their own issues. Yes, they are a 4-2-3-1, but in terms of their attacking phase, they do look like more of a 4-2-4, and that was the issue with their pressing as well, because you'd have Ronaldo looking to step towards Van Dijk or Konate, and then you'd have Bruno sticking towards Henderson. Rashford and Greenwood were sticking narrow, so Greenwood was often looking to close down Van Dijk and block off the passing lane into Robertson, and Rashford would be closing down Alexander-Arnold. However, if Ronaldo was shifting towards Van Dijk, there were times where you'd see Rashford looking to close down Konate and block off the passing lane into Alexander-Arnold, and from those positions, that's where you do need Shaw and Wan-Bissaka two-step tightly when those fullbacks receive the ball. And from there, that would require Lindelof and Maguire to shift laterally to close down Salah or Jota tightly. However, that wasn't the case, and when Alexander-Arnold and Robertson received the ball, there were times where Shaw and Wan-Bissaka were stepping, but they were nowhere near the fullbacks, and that's how they were able to play passes into the forward line. Here we witness United's press in full effect with Ronaldo stepping to Alisson, Rashford ahead of Konate, you have Bruno near Henderson, and Greenwood is ahead of Van Dijk. That results in Alisson bypassing the press and the midfield duo to find Firmino dropping off the center backs, and he ends up chesting the ball into the path of Naby Keita, who's already beyond Fred, and from there you witness Naby Keita bringing down the ball with his chest beyond the Fred pressure, and he's able to drop the ball off into his teammates to help Liverpool bypass that United press. Here's another pressing breakdown from United as Alisson slides the ball across Rashford, who's looking to block off the passing lane into Konate, and while Ronaldo and Bruno are stepping into the path of Van Dijk and Henderson, McTominay doesn't step into the path of Milner, and Alisson's able to play the ball through the midfield zone for Milner, and by the time McTominay steps, you end up seeing Bruno being pulled out to close down Milner, and that allows Milner to slide the ball across Bruno into the path of Henderson to help Liverpool push forward. The other key factor here was that Firmino was dropping off into that central area to receive the ball, and Maguire nor Lindelof were sticking tight towards him, so he was looking to receive the ball in those pockets of space, at times picking up the ball ahead of Fred and McTominay. You'd end up seeing Jota looking to shift laterally into that zone, and then you would see Robertson looking to push forward, and at times you'd have Milner dropping off into that inside left position to receive the ball. With that being said, now when we focus on Liverpool's attacking shape, like I said, there were times where you did have Firmino dropping off into that midfield zone with Jota looking to shift in between that Lindelof-Wan-Bissaka gap. You'd have Robertson pushing forward beyond Greenwood as he was looking to close down Van Dijk, and there were even times where you would see Robertson pegging back Greenwood and Milner or Curtis Jones, who eventually came on for him, dropping off into that inside left position. In terms of the right-hand side, it was often Alexander-Arnold holding a narrow right position, and that was due to the fact that Rashford was looking to break in beyond him, and when you look at some of United's best attacking moves, they all were looking to get balls over the top in beyond Alexander-Arnold, and whether it be Maguire, Shaw, Greenwood, or Bruno, they were looking to get balls over the top into the path of Rashford making run in beyond Alexander-Arnold. And if it wasn't Rashford making that run in beyond Alexander-Arnold, there were times where we witnessed Bruno and even Ronaldo looking to pinch into that zone beyond Alexander-Arnold to receive the ball, and that looked like a legitimate tactic from United. However, Alexander-Arnold did hold that deep inside right position, and when you look at the forward movement, you would have Salah occupying Shaw and dragging him narrow, and at times he was shifting laterally ahead of Maguire, because what you ended up seeing was that Naby Keita was now moving forward to occupy Maguire, and if Salah was shifted central ahead of Maguire, he would be occupying Shaw. Fred wasn't tracking that movement, and that was an integral component to Liverpool's attack. What we also saw from Naby Keita was as that game continued, he was shifting towards the touchline to receive the ball, and there were even times where we saw Firmino shifting into that zone because Fred wasn't tracking the movement of either player, and because Rashford was looking to close down Alexander-Arnold or at times Konate, that created a free passing avenue for Liverpool. In the build-up to Liverpool's opener, witness the pressing breakdown from United. You have Fred stepping towards Henderson because Bruno was stepping into the path of Alisson, and Van Dijk is now prepared to slide the ball across Greenwood into the path of Robertson. When Robertson receives the ball, you could see that Wan-Bissaka does step tight as you end up seeing Greenwood tracking back to close him down, but in that midfield zone, you have Milner's passing lane being blocked out by McTominay, but focus on Naby Keita free in the center circle. When the ball is played into the path of Jota, that's where you see Firmino drifting laterally off of Maguire in between the lines, and that's where a pass can be played. When Firmino does receive possession, it pulls out Maguire, but now that leaves a gap for Salah, who was drifting laterally into those central positions, and all Firmino has to do is poke the ball beyond Maguire, but also focus on Naby Keita, who isn't being closed down or tracked by Fred. When Firmino plays the ball into the path of Salah, he's now placed in a 1v1 with Shaw, but because Naby Keita is making that forward movement, now it's a 2v1, and Salah simply has to slide the ball across the left back into the path of Keita, and from this position he puts Liverpool up 1-0. In the build-up to Liverpool's third goal, Alexander-Arnold slides the ball across Bruno into the path of Firmino, shifting into space in the right channel, and that pulls out Fred. When Fred shifts laterally to apply pressure, the options ahead of Firmino are Naby, Keita, and Henderson, who is beyond Bruno, and you could look at the United front line as Rashford, Ronaldo, nor Bruno are looking to track back. Firmino opts to slide the ball back into the path of Henderson, and Henderson then looks to play the ball into the path of Keita, free ahead of McTominay, and he instantly looks to slide the ball out to Firmino in the right channel. Firmino's now able to run at Luke Shaw, but he ends up splitting both McTominay and Shaw to find Mo Salah dropping ahead of Maguire. That results in Salah backheeling the ball into the path of Firmino, and from there he's looking to split McTominay and Greenwood to find Jota just ahead of Lindelof and Wan-Bissaka. Because when Jota does receive the ball, he's closed down narrowly by the United back four, but he's able to play a square ball into the path of Salah, and now you can see that no one's tracking the movement of Naby Keita as Fred is ball watching. While Salah is unable to get a shot off, the ball ends up falling into the path of Naby Keita, who continued his movement in towards right half space, and from that position he's able to slide the ball to Salah, who's making a front post run off Maguire to increase Liverpool's lead. So with Firmino dropping in between the lines looking to receive the ball, occupying those two central midfielders to ensure that they couldn't press their main markers, or even looking to pick up the ball ahead of the midfield bank, what we also ended up seeing from Liverpool that was key, like I said with Keita, was that the left-sided shuttler was now pushing forward to occupy Lindelof, often dragging him out into an inside right position. That created a huge gap for the likes of Salah, Jota, or Firmino to run into to provide a threat. In the build-up to Liverpool's second goal, you have Henderson on the ball in his own half to pull out Rashford, and that's where you see Firmino dropping ahead of the midfield bank in search of possession. But what Henderson ends up doing is that he flicks the ball over Greenwood and McTominay into the path of Robertson, but once again focus on Naby Keita's positioning in behind Fred and Bruno. When Robertson receives the ball, he does force Greenwood to track back, and while Wan-Bissaka does step, he's not tight on Robertson. And look at his options forward. You have Milner occupying Lindelof, and that creates a lane for Jota to break between the center backs. Robertson ends up clipping the ball over McTominay into the path of Jota, and while the pass is overhit, you end up seeing Maguire and Shaw struggle to clear their lines as Naby Keita continues that forward run ahead of Shaw. And because they're unable to deal with it, Naby Keita steps into the challenge to recover possession, and that's where he ends up seeing Alexander-Arnold making the run beyond Bruno into the right half space. He ends up sliding the ball in towards the right back, and that creates a passing lane for Alexander-Arnold to find Jota, breaking off Lindelof to double Liverpool's lead. In the build-up to Liverpool's fourth goal, it's Jota receiving the ball ahead of Wan-Bissaka on the touchline, and now you see Curtis Jones pushing vertically to occupy Lindelof. That creates a huge gap for Firmino to run into between the center backs, and Jota simply has to clip the ball over McTominay to find Firmino, receiving the ball beyond the midfield duo, and from there when Firmino receives possession, he is closed down by Fred and Maguire, but focus on the movement of Jota, who's running off Wan-Bissaka, and Lindelof simply ball watching. Firmino does a very good job of holding off the pressure, and while he isn't able to play a forward pass, his ability to hold up play allows Robertson and Jota to advance near the final third, and that ultimately results in Jota running off Wan-Bissaka and across Lindelof to receive the ball from Robertson, who pokes it across Maguire, and from there now Jota is able to be goal side of Lindelof, who is applying pressure, and Shaw bites and steps towards him. If Jota can play the ball beyond Shaw, it leaves an unmarked Mo Salah free in the penalty area, and from that position he's able to increase Liverpool's lead. And even when you look to the second half, United did shift to a midfield diamond, and that was looking to combat that midfield overload with Firmino's movement into those central areas. Within the opening minutes, it was still Firmino who provided the impact to get Liverpool's fifth. So as you could see, a combination of Man United's disjointed pressing, the vertical movement from the midfield shuttlers, and Firmino's overload resulted in a dominant Liverpool display.